But I choose to walk in the spirit. It's difficult dealing with all of the ignorance. But in the Bible, it's still talking about the Bible. What is the benefit? Everything about your counterfeit. There ain't no rebuttal you can counter with. On the internet, you the master teacher. In real life, you powerless. Keep it real with you, I don't have time for this. I ride for this, my forefathers died for this. They cry for this opportunity presently I possess, and right now you are the opposite. If you walk in love, you fulfill the law. Don't get involved and you ain't giving it all. If you ever think it's cool to threaten another man's family, then you already lost. Chemtrails got aluminum, heavy metal saturate the atmosphere. Manhattan Project, time travel, Mandela effect, what happened here? GMO food processing to the whole world become obsolete. A black man who believes in Jesus got my own team taking shots at me. You trespassing on property that you don't fully understand properly. All the back and forth, that's not for me, that's for ROC and the War Machine. If we ride together, then we ride together. If we can't do it, I'd rather leave. I still stand on the word of God till the day I die and no longer breathe. We trapped inside the diaspora, nightmares of the massacre. Cold sweat, I'm below deck in the middle passage, just a passenger. Revolutionary hardcore, liberation, that's a hard job. You ain't ready, you a oddball. Keep your mouth closed like lockjaw. I learned trying to bring people together on the same page, make them separate. All the talk about reconciliation, when the time comes, you hesitate. If Jesus was able to sit at the table with a bunch of sinners, you very fake. Your steps ordered by the Lord, and how it was yesterday, a big mistake. We the city sitting on the hill. Guess it all depends on how you live. Guess it all depends on how you feel, and we both know that ain't God's will. I stood on what I felt was right. I don't never question if God's real. Trapped inside this matrix, I'm about to pop the red and the blue pill.
Bless them which persecute you. Bless and curse not. Rejoice with them that do rejoice, and weep with them that weep. Be of the same mind one toward another. Mind not high things, but condescend to men of low estate. Be not wise in your own conceits. Recompense to no man evil for evil. Provide things honest in the sight of all men. If it be possible, as much as lieth in you, live peaceably with all men. Dearly beloved, avenge not yourselves, but rather give place unto wrath. For it is written, vengeance is mine, I will repay, said the Lord. Therefore, if thine enemy hunger, feed him. If he thirst, give him drink. For in so doing thou shalt heap coals of fire on his head. Be not overcome of evil, but overcome evil with good. Romans 12:14-21.
You're not Peyton Manning, you're not Peyton Manning, Peyton Manning, you're not Peyton Manning, you're not Peyton Manning, Peyton Manning, you're not Peyton Manning, you're not Peyton Manning, Peyton Manning, you're not Peyton Manning, you're not Peyton Manning, Peyton Manning, you're not Peyton Manning, you're not Peyton Manning, Peyton Manning, you're not Peyton Manning, you're not Peyton Manning, Peyton Manning, you're not Peyton Manning, you're not Peyton Manning, Peyton Manning, you're not Peyton Manning, you're not Manning. I am Peyton Manning level, I'm on GOAT status. I think I'm the baddest mother lover ever walk on this planet. Damn it, you could never see me, you could never beat me, you could never be me, disrespect me, and I'm eating all of your pizza. I know I'm not right, I know I'm not white, I know I'm gon' call the popo on you if you hit me. I don't fight, I'm a rapper, I don't write. Rio, you got all that hype, that's the stuff that I don't like. Why you laughing at my height? I wish I could slap your face. You just think you're so amazing, you just think that you're the greatest. Why you fucking Tom Brady? I am Peyton Manning, end of conversation. You just hating, I am Peyton Manning, say it. I am Peyton Manning, say it. No, Dibble God playing, that's a Drake line. Beat a midget up, that's a hate crime. 8 towns on 3 game time. Got the trunk knocking from the baseline. I'm all about the money, baby, crocker cake time. Chopsticks on deck, no Shanghai. 4-5, you come to my waistline. Keep the 4-5 tip by my waistline. You soft in the middle like fruit pie. I know it hard for you to walk a straight line. You wouldn't throw trays in the food fight. That's what I heard through the grapevine. I know you don't mind wasting your time. I would just prefer you didn't waste mine. You gon' get what coming to you in due time. Little pussycat running from the K9. You're not Peyton Manning, you're not Peyton Manning, Peyton Manning, you're not Peyton Manning, you're not Peyton Manning, Peyton Manning, you're not Peyton Manning, you're not Peyton Manning, Peyton Manning, you're not Peyton Manning, you're not Peyton Manning, Peyton Manning, you're not Peyton Manning, you're not Peyton Manning, Peyton Manning, you're not Peyton Manning, you're not Peyton Manning, Peyton Manning, you're not Peyton Manning, you're not Peyton Manning, Peyton Manning, you're not Peyton Manning, you're not hating Manny. You ain't nowhere in my category, mandatory for me to tell you that you were very boring. And the moral of the story, I wish I could just ignore you, but they gotta burn your body, put you in the crematorium. And I'm the only audio inside the auditorium. And when I'm finished with you will not have no memorial. You wanna be Luigi, but you're not ready for Mario. In no scenario, running circles around your cardio, and that's a body blow. It's not a secret. Everybody know that you ain't coming close. I leave you comatose, and you become a ghost. I overdose. I gotta overload. That's when the windows of heaven open up for me with the overflow, and I can feel the power moving within every last chromosome. Battle right around the corner. You already know it's on. Understand me? You're not hating Manny. You're not hating Manny. Woo!
I don't know, man, Vyasa. I think the whole reparations thing, we leaving out the Portuguese, man. We leaving out the Portuguese, and that's crazy. Hold on, let me see if I could share my screen. Window. So this is part of the premise for my chapter on Deuteronomy 28. And I break down like these different terms that a lot of people not familiar with, like merchant guilds. You know, I think merchant guilds and Hanseatic League, the Age of Discovery, the Treaty of Alcacavas, Casa de India, the Crown of Castile, Casa de Contratación, the Council of the Indies, the Spanish Main, the Consolidado de Mercades, the United Society Partners in the Gospel, Royal African Company, Company of Merchant Adventurers of London, Polisonadel System, the Charter Companies, the Trading Post, Livery Company, Conquistador, Asiento de Negros. So all these terms, I think, have to be defined before we even have a conversation about the actual slave trade. So this is my ground research on these issues before we talk about the slave trade. What's up, man? I got Orthodox Moor in the building. I got Sabio, Dagger Squad in the building. And anybody else want to come on, man, just jump on and we could dialogue. This is where I want to talk about first. And this is the premises that, as far as Deuteronomy 28, the transatlantic slave trade, these are my notes on what I'm going to be. This is going to be the round off or the summary of what I'm going to be putting together for the book, second book.
Yo, first off, I want to say I'm not going to go off into the Ottomans, you know, but everything that I'm not.
Can't help it,
I'm not.
You can't help it.
No, I can't. I can't.
I can't. Right quick.
I actually can, but I'm going to keep it right. But because you know everything that you're talking about, they're involved in it. This is what, and I'm glad you recognize that. And I'm glad you recognize that. And like I said, it was something that I stumbled on accident, you know. And I did some research, and you told me to further my research. And as I furthered my research, I connected things up with you, and here we go. We're here now. And all I can say is I appreciate your research because it's going to help me further my research.
Okay.
You know, and the connections that you're pulling out, I'm hoping everyone else is connecting.
Yeah. So basically, let me start
because the links are there.
For anybody that's not familiar, this is my chapter for my this is for my next book, Deuteronomy 28 and Transatlantic Slave Trade. This is actually my notes that I thought I actually lost. Deuteronomy 28 and the Transatlantic Slave Trade. The verse Deuteronomy 28:68 is the most popular recruitment argument among all Black Hebrew Israelite claimants. In order to deconstruct their Deuteronomy 28 argument about the transatlantic slave trade, I must first clarify the origins of the slave trade and why it occurred. To make things easier for the reader in the simplest terms, I'll define some terms and include a description to help the reader feel more at ease while receiving this material. The following terms will be defined and summarized before moving forward with the breakdown. So we have merchant guilds, Hanseatic League, Age of Discovery, the Treaty of Alcacavas, the Casa de India. GMS Killer Cam, there's no call-in number, but you could jump on if you want. I agree or disagree. What's up, brother? Go ahead.
I'm looking forward to this part of your book. You know what I'm saying, the new one, because in reading your first book, you know what I'm saying, I was actually expecting you to focus heavily on this part. You know what I'm saying, but I like how you laid it out, because you were going more like the historical route to the modern argument, right? Like I can see how you were building to this in the book and whatnot. You know what I'm saying? So like I'm assuming this is how you're going to start off the next book, right?
Yeah. The whole book is going to be about. The whole book is going to be about Deuteronomy 28. And
nice.
The whole book is going to be about Deuteronomy 28 because for example, when you think of Deuteronomy, go ahead, Sabio.
Going into the Portuguese is very smart, because they are crucial. They are the crucial element that everyone, and like you was just saying, everyone overlooks them, and I don't know why we overlook them.
Facts, fam. Like that's gonna hurt a lot of people's feelings too. You know what I'm saying? Because there's one of the newer things in the Israelite community is the concept of trying to be a Black Portuguese Jew and whatnot. And I'm still trying to understand that full paradigm, because like it seems to me like if you're trying to make yourselves them, then you're connecting yourselves to like free people versus enslaved people, and I'm trying to understand how you do that. And still claim that you're connecting to like something like a Deuteronomy 28 or whatnot.
That's it right there.
Yeah, so pretty much, the Portuguese, I always tell people the Portuguese is the worst out of everybody else. But so when we look at, for example, the Royal African Company, Lionel, did you want to say something, bro?
Oh, you said you talking about your this is like basically an outline of what's going to be in your second part of the book.
Second book, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like, I would say with adding, when you always talk about the Hanseatic League and the start of the slave trade, you should also write a little blurb on Bartholomew de las Casas, because he was the one who came to Rome and said to the Pope, let's bring these Africans over here, to save the soul of the Indian. And you should probably add that in a little bit too, just a little blurb. I ain't saying nothing that you're saying is wrong.
That goes back to no, you're right. That goes back to the whole Brazil and the Indians were being killed off and all that stuff. So yes, that's a part of everything. Let me read this real quickly. The Royal African Company was an English mercantile trading company established in 1660 by the Roy Stuart family and merchants from the city of London to trade along Africa's west coast. Now, why is this important? This is important because remember, there's a faction in the Hebrew Israelite community that speaks about King James being black. And some people even claim he's an Israelite, although not all the groups claim he's an Israelite, but they claim he is the main guy that has a lot to do with the formation of the book. Not that he wrote the King James or translated it himself, but he authorized people to do it. And if I'm saying, if these are the guys you're trying to claim that are black, I wouldn't claim these guys at all, because look at it, was headed by the Duke of York, who was Charles II's younger brother, and eventually ascended to the throne as James II. It transported more African slaves to the Americas than any other organization in the Atlantic slave trade history. It was established by Charles II's restoration to the English throne in 1660, though its initial mission was to mine the gold fields up the Gambia River discovered by Prince Rupert during the interregnum. It quickly evolved into a barbaric and long-running slave trade. Other commodities were also harvested, mostly from the Gold Coast. It survived in a much diminished state of existence after being insolvent in 1708 until 1752, when its properties were passed to the emerging African Company of Merchants, which remained until 1821. In the 1680s, the company was shipping around 5,000 enslaved people a year across the Atlantic to markets mainly in the Caribbean. Many were inscribed with the letters DOY after the Duke of York, who replaced his brother on the throne in 1685 and became King James II. Other slaves had their breasts decorated with the company's initials, RAC. According to historian William Pettigrew, this organization shipped more enslaved African women, men, and children to the Americas than any other single institution during the entire time of the transatlantic slave trade. And its owners were well informed of the company's operations and hoped to benefit from it. Between 1662 and 1731, the company shipped about 212,000 slaves, 44,000 of whom died en route, or around 3,000 every year. They were still transporting captives to English settlements in North America at the time. Wow. Oh man, Charles II, and we worried about if he black or white. Why are we worried about that for? Livery company, the Polysign chartered company. Okay. All right. This is a list of the Portuguese company de Guinea, the Dutch company, Dutch West India Company. So this is like a list of the companies that actually operated in the of course, this is my outline. British Bristol Society of Merchant Ventures, 1552. They were involved, I think, with the Hanseatic League and the French West Indian Company, Brandenburg African Company. You had Scandinavian companies with Swedish people involved with the slave trade, Scottish, Spanish. So when we talk about reparations, you're talking about all these different companies are involved, and it's orchestrated by the company itself. Anybody want to add on?
Can I be contrarian real quick?
Yeah, of course. I ain't here for no
Okay,
yes
but
man
Garfield.
information. I ain't here for no yes man shit. Go ahead, man.
Okay, but Garfield, what about those African nations who had enslaved us? We need to get reparations from Ghana and stuff too. Let's forget these Europeans for a second. It was the Africans who had
Okay.
sold us into
Okay.
slavery.
I agree with you. Next question.
And I just want to see if you can add that because
Okay.
people be saying that a lot. So I just want to add that to be contrary.
Okay. Trade. So you have trading posts. You have factories. From the 15th century onward, European states built factories in Africa, Asia, and the Americas, which appear to be official political dependencies of those states. In retrospect, these have been used as forerunners of imperial extension. So you had trading posts, you had factories, you had conquistador. Any of the leaders in the Spanish Conquest of America, especially of Mexico and Peru in the 16th century, conquistadors traveled outside Europe to capture territories and open trading channels in the Americas. All right. So what was going on before the transatlantic slave trade? Before anybody thought about trading Africans to the Americas, commerce was widespread in Europe and Asia. Throughout Europe, mercantile guilds flourished in Europe. Lionel, your background always at midnight. Throughout Europe, merchant guilds flourished in Spain, France, Germany, and England. Eventually, a few merchant guilds agreed to join together and establish a Hanse. A Hanse is a merchant guild in the great cities on or near the Baltic, on the coast of the North Sea, and in western cities where the Baltic trade can be profitably brokered, especially Cologne and so forth. It is advantageous for these German traders as well as the towns that profit from their activities to establish reciprocal alliances in order to increase trade flow. So this is the start of the Hanseatic League and all that stuff. The English and the Dutch, who had learned and gained so much from the Hanseatics, were growing in mercantile and industrial strength and were increasing. So they had wars from like the 1300s, the Black Death, and different wars and different things going on. The root of the Atlantic slave trade. So I get into this about, what is this? China and Japan, the Portuguese, China, Japan. Let me see what else I'll talk about. The trade routes, Africa, Asia, and Europe are connected because of trade routes. The Silk Road are going to the Silk Road from the 2nd century BC to the 18th century. The Silk Road was, and is a network of trading routes linking east and west. I don't know if you guys could actually see the route right here. We go all the way across. All right. Then we talk about the Trans-Saharan trade route. The Trans-Saharan trade route related Mediterranean economies that demanded gold and could supply salt to sub-Saharan economies where gold was plentiful from the 7th to the 11th centuries, despite the fact that local salt supplies were adequate in sub-Saharan Africa. Saharan salt use was encouraged for trade purposes. Arab traders in southern Moroccan towns like Sijil Masya purchased gold from the Berbers and used it to fund further caravans in the 8th and 9th centuries and all that stuff. The increased gold demand in North Islamic states seeking the raw metal for minting drew scholarly attention to Mali and Ghana, the latter dubbed the land of gold. For example, Al-Baka mentioned the 11th century court at Kombe Saleh, where he saw gold embroidered helmets, golden saddles, gold encrusted shields and arms, and gold encrusted dog colors. The Soninke were able to keep the origins of their gold hidden from Muslim merchants. Gold mining and commerce on the other hand, were significant practices that certainly mobilized hundreds of thousands of Africans. Leaders of Ghana's ancient empire amassed riches by holding the pure metal center and allowing their subjects to sell the unworked native gold. All right, that's from the Metropolitan Museum. So this is a picture. I wish I could blow this up so you guys could see it. This is the Trans-Saharan trade routes. All right, and that's a map. We talk about the Amber Road. The Amber Road is in Europe, of course, from Northern Europe, come all the way down. You have the Amber Road. You have the Incest route, which was in East Africa. You have all this trading stuff. Then the Islam changes the game. They start coming in and taking over and start fighting and all that different stuff. So in the Reconquista, English reconquest in medieval Spain and Portugal, a series of campaigns by Christian states to recapture territory from the Muslims who had occupied most of the Iberian Peninsula in the early 8th century. There were military orders, Spain and Portugal. From Portugal, you had the Knight Templars, the Order of Aviz, the Order of St. James, the Order of Christ. You always hear Robon talk about the Order of Christ. They have Spain had the Order of Calatrava, Order of Santiago, Order of Montes or whatever. And those were those were wars by the Christians against the Muslims/Moors. All right.
Yo, Garfield, I was just going to ask you if you was going to talk about the Silk Roads, how important they are to trade.
Okay. All right. And by the way, you said Congo put us in slavery with Portugal. What about the Congo king that actually freed us from a lot of the slavery in Brazil, took back slaves from Brazil back to Congo and freed them up? So let's not be biased about the slave trade, because Africans played a lot of role in the slave trade. Don't get me wrong. You know, we helped the merchant traders with the bodies and we was making money because most African tribes were slave raiders. All right, y'all could talk. Let me take this phone call real quick.
Yeah, and that's big right there, what you just mentioned about them. And the reason they had to be slave raiders was what was going on in the continent. You had these invaders coming in and they was forcing their ideas on these people. Look, we have these guns, we have these cannons, we have some things that you don't have now. We can give you these and you can use these as tools and weapons to do what? Go in here and take these people that you don't get along with.
Right. And C.L.R. James talks about that in his first chapter in the Black Jacobins, where, you know, even a lot of them were even like, okay, you know, as you said, we have like advanced weapons, and if you don't get down with what we're trying to do over here, we're gonna use these strange weapons on you all.
Mm-hmm.
So, but like my whole thing on the slave trade is, I believe in what Walter Rodney wrote in his work, West Africa and the Atlantic Slave Trade. He says, yes, Africans played a significant part within the slave trade, but at the end of the day, the slave trade was organized and financed by Europeans, and the Africans had no had no way of really influencing Europe's capitalistic development at that time,
Right.
and only an enemy of African people would just subscribe to Africans sold other black people into slavery. I don't want to know nothing else. So it's just like when people bring up, you know, when a Kyle Rittenhouse or one of these cops out here shoot a black person, someone automatically jumps up and says, "But what about black on black violence?" You know,
Right.
it's the same concept.
And it is the same concept, but it's a little more devious than that, because what they're actually doing is they're downplaying the control and the environment, what was actually going on. You have to take into account that these Muslims, Arabs, Christians, Portuguese, whatever you want to say, these people were coming into this continent and they already had their preconceived ideas that these Africans, that these people were beneath them.
Right.
They didn't come into that continent looking at them as human beings. They looked at their ways as pagan. They looked at the things they saw as weird and crazy. So this was all permeating in both these paradigms, in both these, you know, and 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 this is what's being downplayed and not looked at. And that's one of the most frustrating things about talking about this, and with people who really don't look into the history of what was going on a continent. You have to look at the racism and that was already being formulated.
All right.
You're correct.
Yeah, this is the spice route. You guys finished talking about what y'all talking about?
I just add one last thing. Even the Pope, if you read page 3 of Eric Williams' classic work, Capitalism and Slavery, you find out that Pope Martin V, I think it was, he said to both Spain and Portugal, because they was beefing at first when they went over into the west coast of Africa and they was fighting over demarcation. And then when you read Capitalism and Slavery, you find that the Pope said, you two good Catholic nations, stop fighting amongst yourselves. You are both authorized to reduce to servitude all infidel people. And infidel people means non believers. So our ancestors was Sufi Islamic, and the Indian was was whatever belief system they had. So it was already put in place anyway.
Oh, okay. Yeah, earlier when I spoke, I talked about the areas where they took the African captives slash slaves: Canary Islands, Azores, Cape Verde, Guinea Islands, Madeira, Sao Tome. During the 16th century, the total slave population of the Atlantic sugar islands may have been about 10,000. Slave trading from the African coast to Europe and the Atlantic islands, according to Philip Curtin, total 175,000 in a century and a half between 1450 and 1600. He estimates that only 50,000 of this number went to the peninsula and other areas of Europe, which appears poor in view of the slave population's growth in Portugal alone. Between 1441 and 1505, according to Jose Ramos, between 136,000 and 151,000 slaves were brought to Portugal and its islands in the 16th century. So all these slaves from Africa is going all these places. Mm-mm-mm. The slave owning elite, on the other hand, was somewhat different. In the 1490s, 2,000 Jewish New Christian children were exiled to colonize the island. Later, those forcibly settled Portuguese merchants, Tangamayos, an aristocrat woman from the Congo Kingdom, intermarried. The Afro Jewish, Luso Catholic planter class of Sao Tome was unable to maintain its dominance in the sugar supply for long. Sao Tome's well watered volcanic soil was ideal for cane farming, and slaves could be bought easily. But other factors conspired to stifle the country's sugar industry. Yeah. All right. Some different things going on right here. Let me see what else. So this is the demarcation, line of demarcation. This is why they actually got line of demarcation with us crazy right here. Imagine these people splitting up the world for themselves, yo. All right, let me see. What about Jeremiah and Deuteronomy 28:68? So we start looking at some different verses and comparing it if it fulfills the prophecy and all those type of thingies. We talk about the vassal treaty, Deuteronomy 28 and the vassal treaty, the connection with such and such. We look at Ashurnapal and look at what do we look at? We look at the Assyrians, how they actually transported Israelites as slaves, or transported them to Egypt during that time period when they were actually attacking Egypt. So that's something important to talk about. We talk about Esarhaddon Treaty and how similar it is to Deuteronomy 28:68. We look at some parallels between the Esarhaddon's Treaty and Deuteronomy 28, what the scholarship is saying, different parallels and so forth with Deuteronomy 13 and the Vassal Treaty. The port of Egypt in the inscription of Sargon II, a reference to another Assyrian, Karu, on the western frontier, was found in the inscription of Sargon II following his repression of the revolt. It talks about different proof of trading and port control by the Assyrians. Egypt, Esarhaddon, and Ashurnapal. So it shows the different boats and different areas. Dor in Israel is a port city area that they would transport the when they took over that's where they would go to load them onto ships in Dor. So I showed that on the map exactly where it would be. So this is a list of different place names in the Assyrian records of port cities and where they would load people and the people that they would load and which country. So see, Israel is Dor right here, and that's in Esarhaddon's records. Karu, referred to as Karu, the place. Israel Dor. So that's where they would load them from. Let me see what else I want to touch on right here. Yeah, different things with the connection with Deuteronomy 28. This is just some notes and whatever, connecting the book together with that.
Hey,
Yeah,
Garfield, I got a question for you. I'm trying to write a book myself, like a history book myself, right? And so one thing I want to ask you is, what is your way of outlining your book? Because I use note cards. So what's the strategy you use?
Yeah, I have notes for everything, man. I've been collecting notes for the past 9 years. So all my notes, like if you look in my notes section, you see notes. I have over 600 different notes for different topics. So if you say Hebrew Israelites and they want to talk about, say they want to talk about Israel Hill, I got a category for Israel Hill, how to debunk that or whatever, like a whole category. So Israel Hill and all these claims they make, like the tribe of Dahomey, people are from Dahomey or from Dan, and all that different things. I think that's the best way to do it. Like if somebody say, like we having a conversation like on Facebook and we debating, I would put a whole note and put a heading and say, hey, this is what this topic is, and this, if in case somebody want to argue about that, say Orthodox Moor talking about Moors, and I say, okay, Moors is this, and boom, I would have a category just for Moors, and then I would say, oh, I got it from here, I got it from Facebook, and da 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 da, and post the link for the Facebook here, or copy and paste the notes. So any little thing that you can collect, you collect. You know, look at what the IVP dictionary says. Background commentary says about Deuteronomy 28. It's very interesting. Returning to Egypt in ships, Assyrian kings of the 7th century coerced their vassals into supplying troops for their military campaigns. One way then for Israelites to return to Egypt in ships would be in the Assyrian campaigns launched from the Phoenician coast, in which they were obliged to take part. This represents continued oppression by foreign enemies, as the curses have detailed. Another possibility would include falling victim to Egypt's slave trade in Syria, Palestinian, where the slaves were often transported by ship. All right, so then this goes to Donald Shilley, and he points out how the king in Judah was transported by ships, and how in prison A and prison B, how they document all that stuff about the ships and how them go on ships and all that craziness. Deuteronomy 28 possibilities, 70 AD, 135 AD, Joel 3:6. You know, so we talk about different ways how we could define that and so forth. But that's pretty much it. I'm glad I actually have this still on my computer, because I thought I had lost it forever, boy. Do all this whole thing over would have been a headache. But anyway, y'all jump on. What y'all want to talk about? If y'all want to build on that and or whatever.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that book coming out, because I think Deuteronomy 28 scholastically separates the men from the boys in the Israelite community. You know what I'm saying? Because I think a lot of people, you can tell how scholastically serious you can take someone based upon their view on the matter, right? Either someone's going to talk about like, well, that's only talking about the transatlantic slave trade or whatnot, and then you're going to ask for proof, and you're going to get like a whole bunch of runaround and a whole bunch of gish gallop, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Or you're going to have like people have different views on it. You know what I'm saying? I think a lot of people who are taken more seriously scholastically in the Israelite community, they don't really lean on Deuteronomy 28. I'm not one who does. So I'm intrigued to see
what is your main thing that you use to prove that African Americans have a connection to the Israelites, ancient Israelites?
In what context? Biblically, scholastically,
all of them.
So for me, I go into like the four corners concept, right? Like Israelites getting spread to the four corners. So the word there for west, like they'll say like north, south, east, west, etc. in certain verses, right? And the word for west there is the ma'arab. And so I do believe that the scrolls talk about Israelites being spread to the Maghreb, for instance, right? For me, the Maghreb does include Timbuktu, or it includes Mali, etc.
Okay.
For some people it does, for some people it doesn't, and whatnot. And for me, I can see a lot of history linking sub-Saharan people, not just like North African, or not just Luso Africans or Lusados, etc. You know what I'm saying? To migrations of Israelites, etc. And I can also see I can see evidence on both sides of the water for practices that would go along with, like I was talking about earlier, about Israelites who were converted to Islam, etc., but still maintain some sort of a Israelite tradition separate from Islam.
Brother Orthodox Moor, can I ask you a question?
Yes, sir.
How can it be? How can it be possible that there were some, so-called Israelites that converted to, Islam and still kept a so-called Israelite tradition? When you read two primary source documents that come out of West Africa, one of them is called the Tariq el Sudan and the Tariq el Fatash. When you read those two documents, you find out that there really was not a so-called Jewish population. Our ancestors were Muslims, Sufi Muslims, to be more precise. So, where is the evidence of Jews being in that area in Africa, being part of West Africa? How is that possible?
You can go straight to that same Tariq al Fatash in Sudan and look at a migration from Yemen, etc., that predates Islam. Well,
that's due to Sharifism. That just Sharifism. That basically means that in Islamic nations, specifically African ones, they believe that if you claim that you were part of the Middle East, or you claim that you had lineage to the Prophet Muhammad, that would somehow boost your status as a Muslim. So you gotta question that part, because that part isn't real.
So you're saying that the defeat of the Himyarite kingdom to the Ethiopian Christians didn't happen?
I mean, it did happen, but what I'm saying is, when you brought up that Timbuktu and the Berbers and stuff came from.
You know what's a better route to go? All right.
The
Fatash talk about different people from Yemen, right? Now, what are the oral traditions and the archaeology that goes back to what I said about genetics, linguistics, archaeology, anthropology, and history? Let's have that as a base in our back of our mind. Right? All and Yemenites, which led to the Himyarite folks, or the Himyarite to the Yemenite, whichever way. They have oral traditions. They have a couple, right? And a couple of them say one thing, and another couple say another thing. So which one do we go by? Which one is the right one? The right oral tradition of how they got? Because I know one of the traditions said that two guys came and taught them Hebrewism, meaning that they were converts. So are you saying that they're converts, or are you saying that they're actually Hebrews?
I'm seeing it in front of mix in Africa, right? And conversion means nothing to me, right? Because Israelite law stipulates that a convert's the same as an Israelite. So there's some people who trip on the conversion. Like, you know me and my people don't trip on it, right?
I'm sorry. So you're saying that you accept being a convert then?
I accept that there's some people who descend from converts.
Oh, okay.
But real quick, so you're talking about like, so I agree with you in the concept. When you're talking about like, how do you prove out what oral tradition you go with? When it comes to oral traditions, I say you go with whatever tradition you can prove out with other stuff. Like you were talking about previously in a previous video about like archaeology, linguistics, etc. Right? So real quick, so just so I understand everyone's understanding of linguistics in West Africa, is Hassania Arabic indigenous to West Africa, or did it migrate there?
What? Arabic it migrated there. It's not indigenous there.
So where did the Hassania form of Arabic come from? Just so I'm clear, because it's different than the like Moroccan Arabic. It's
right?
different than Algerian Arabic. It's different than Libyan Arabic. It's different than Maghrebi. It's Hassani is pretty specific to the Beni Hassan people, etc. In that migration.
Oh, okay, I got you. I mean, if you look at even the Babylonian Jews with the Judo-Arabic that they have, it's specific to them. So different people can have different traditions. Because the Beni Hassan, I don't know, are you right when you said Banu Hassan? Are you right about that?
And the Banu Sulaim, etc. Yeah.
Right. No, I'm talking about the name of the group. Okay.
Yeah, Hassani Arabic is the name of the Arabic that's used in sub-Saharan West Africa.
Yeah, I mean,
it's real particular.
Arabic. Yeah, and I'm not familiar with the Arabic as far as where it comes from and so forth. I'm not familiar, so I'm not going to pretend to be an expert. So you're
no worries
at this point. But whenever you have a mixture of a language, yes, you can define and trace people. It's like Eldad the Danite spoke a certain type of Arabic, so they could trace him to North Africa. So that's how they knew he was lying about certain things. But are you saying that Arabic is traced back to Israel or traced back to specific Israelites? I mean, help me out.
No, Southern Arabia, etc., East Africa.
Oh, okay. That's fine. Because
I'm saying like, so would we agree that the presence of a language from that area would at least denote some form of migration from that area?
Yes, specifically.
Okay.
Specifically. That's evidence. That's very good evidence. That's why I said we got to use the 5, and then that's one of the 5.
Facts.
So if that's there, I have to acknowledge it. We can't be lazy and say, "Oh no, I don't like how that sound, so I don't want to be a part of that." You know what I'm saying? So what you're saying, it makes a lot of sense. I think a lot of the Fatash and all these writings, we have to be we're grateful for the record keeping, but sometimes we got to be very careful also of the motive of why some of these people say what they say. So so let's not disregard whatever, like what you're saying right now. It might be new to some people, but we have to understand how language works. So
speaking of language, shout out to Abu in the chat. I see you out there, fam. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Leave that Palestinian alone.
Hey man, I'm being accused of being in scholastic bed with you and him, so I might as well have fun with it, man. Like some people say, if you're gonna walk on thin ice, you might as well dance. You know what I'm saying?
Right. All right. So you had said something earlier. I'm trying to go back to what you were saying about the not you, Lionel. So you continue, Lionel, what you were saying, because I interrupted. Go ahead.
I basically said, like, I find it very implausible that there were some Jews in West Africa at the time, because out of the 2 primary source documents that we have that historians use to reconstruct the history of West Africa, black people in that area. Let me finish.
Hold on.
You let him rock out.
Hold on. No. Are you saying West Africa? What time period? Because you didn't say what time period. You got to say a time period, bro. You have.
Well, I'm gonna give you another book that I'm using to come up with my thesis. It's West Africa, Islam in the Arab World by Hunwick, where he says that the language of Arabic and the language of scholarship, the language of scholarship in West Africa was Arabic, and a large majority of the people in the West Coast were Sufi Islamic. So what I was saying to the brother is that it's hard for me to believe that there were Jews in that area at the time, because the language, the religion of the day was Sufi Islamic. I find that very hard to believe.
Okay, so this is what I'm trying to understand. Like, so we would agree that Sufi Islam couldn't come around until after Prophet Muhammad, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, like, so hold on real quick. So the same records that you're talking about specify a migration that would have happened in the early 500s. that would happen like a century before the prophet was born, right? So if there's a migration happening from east to west, at least a century before the prophet's born, why is that implausible? That's all I'm trying to understand.
But you're saying, but what I'm saying is,
Hold on,
you're trying.
hold on. Orthodox Moor, what are you saying? What is implausible as far as Jews being?
So he's saying it's implausible that Jews could be in West Africa at that time period. Like, so in Tariq el-Fatash and el-Sudan, when you're going to see stuff about a migration from potentially from Yemen around.
Let's do the Sharifism.
Hold.
Let's do the Sharifism. Shaking a
Hold on. What time period? I'm confused.
So the time period is circa 525 during the fall of the Himmerite kingdom.
So you're saying that there were Jews in West Africa at the time? It's possible because
right now I'm just talking about a migration from Southern Arabia to West Africa. That's all I'm talking about right now. So he's saying it's he's saying it's implausible that Jews could be there at the time period. I'm saying what's implausible given the migration and the time of the migration. Right. I'm just trying to figure that part out.
They're not meant that. The Jewish population is not mentioned when you look at the chapters concerning religion.
Okay, got
what
you.
You do find, what you do find, no. What you do find is that you find that West Africans, specifically our ancestors, were mixing the old ways with the new ways. We still practice ancestor worship, but we were still Islamic. There really wasn't no. That's written in there. There really wasn't no
so
Jewish
we couldn't
customs.
be Islamic in the 500s. You understand what I'm saying?
We were Islamic during the Middle Ages.
Okay, I'm not disputing that. So are you disputing that the same records you're talking about also speak about a migration that come in the early 500s?
Yes, it talks about that, but as I say again, that was due to Sharifism.
Here's all I'm trying to understand, bro. Why is it implausible that in the early 500s, a population could have come over from Southern Arabia, East Africa, that could have had Jewish people in the population, being the fact that there was, in fact, a Jewish kingdom that was defeated by Ethiopian Christians at the time, and there was people who were leaving the area at the time. And again, this is a century prior to the birth of the Prophet of Islam, much less the rise of Islam.
You're talking about Duwas?
Dunawas, yeah.
Okay.
They're not mentioned in the primary source documents that we have concerning West Africa.
Who's not mentioned? So just so I understand.
The Jewish the so-called Jewish population that you're trying to find, they're not mentioned. So in history,
hold on, real quick. So is that population from Southern Arabia did they come over? That's all I'm trying to understand.
Oh my gosh, you have an obsession with Southern Arabia. But that's due to Sharifism, like that's.
Well, no. I think we
so either they came over or they didn't. That's what I'm trying to understand.
Yeah, we're asking the wrong question. So at 525, who would document of this Jewish community? Who would have documents of that? Because you're looking at several things right now. You're looking at Judaism as far as
no. Real quick. I'm not saying that there was a Jewish community documented at that juncture. I'm saying that there's an east-west migration happening, right?
Oh, okay, that's where you're at right now. Okay.
Yeah, that's that, bro. That's all I'm trying to say. Did the east-west migration happen? That's all I'm trying to understand.
You see the east. You see the so-called thing between the connection between Arabia and like places like Somalia and in Ethiopia. That's because a lot of those girls down there speak Ge'ez, and they speak a Afro-Semitic language.
Mm-hmm.
But you're not going to see a so-called only Semitic language that you're going to see in West Africa during the Middle Ages is Arabic. But you're going to see that more within East Africa. There was a book that I recently just read the other day. It's called The Mad Mullah of Somaliland, where a lot of Prophet Muhammad's followers, when they needed shelter after they got kicked out of Arabia, they went into Somalia. And a lot of those Somalians are mixed between, the indigenous African population and the Arabians. But you're not going to necessarily see that with West Africa. You're going to see that more in the East. That's why a lot of them have oval foreheads, narrow features, etc.
So I'm going to ask this in a real short way, right? Did the migration from East to West happen to West Africa in that time frame?
East Africa and West Africa?
Yeah, were the East Africans that came to West Africa, were the Southern Arabians that came to West Africa in the time period that the Tariq al-Fatash also didn't talk about.
From what I've read so far, I haven't found it yet. So I mean, maybe if I read some more on it, I'll find it. But I just find that
I
just
appreciate
implausible.
What time period is the El Fatash and the El Sudan referring to?
The Tariq El Fatash and the Tariq El Sudan, they come around during these chronicles come around during. I can't specifically find the. I don't specifically know the date, but they're in the Middle Ages. And these are the few works that historians, specifically Hunwick, has translated, and Mahmoud Qadi is.
Are you denying what the Fatash and El Sudan says regarding the Jews and in Africa? Because you're saying that are you saying there's no Jews in West Africa at the time?
I'm saying is that we like that's just most of the populations there were Islamic. That's what I'm trying to really push out there, that they were pretty much Islamic. But like, I mean, that's what I'm saying.
You're not going to get any pushback on me that from the Middle Ages on. You know what I'm saying, like that Islam is like the main religion moving in West Africa, and Arabic is the lingua franca, right? No issue with that, right? What I'm trying to understand is why would it, like, so if there is an East-West migration, at least a century before the rise of the Prophet, and at least a century and a half before the rise of Islam, etc., why would it be implausible? Because I'm talking about the concept of Jews or Israelites that would be converted to Islam. So if we're talking about like a set of records that's recorded in like the 12th, 11th, 13th century, etc., they're already well into being Muslim at the time, right? So when you're talking about this concept, like, oh yeah, they're trying to refer to themselves as being from the East and whatnot, just so they can make it better for being a Muslim and whatnot. You know what I'm saying? Fam, like there's people mentioned in the Tariq al-Fatash and al Sudan, like the B'nai Israel or whatnot, right? There's a modern group in Senegal right now amongst the Wolof, you know what I'm saying, that are called the B'nai Israel, and they call it, they said that they connect to being Jews, but they don't want to practice Judaism, they want to be Muslims, and that being called the B'nai Israel doesn't make their life any easier, you know what I'm saying? They don't do it to gain some kind of traction in Islam. It actually makes their life harder. So when I look at stuff like that, right, and I look at the East-West migration and whatnot, I'm trying to say, why would it be implausible that a migration that came before the rise of Islam, when being written about after Islam is well solidified, could negate the fact of the possibility that potential that early migration could have converted to Islam somewhere in between that time period.
Watch this. Now let me ask you a question. The Wolof people, how much Wolof people exist in the world today?
I couldn't tell you. I want to say somewhere in between less than.
All right. So you're saying that some of the people within that community is claiming Banu Israel. Am I correct?
Yes, sir.
Are they the same as genetic wise? Are they the same as the people? As the people who are there, are they different genetic wise?
You're going to find a mix in genetics.
All right. So are they the
same as like the Fulani, the Mandinka, etc.
Right. So the Wolof people they're not genetically sounded as the same people like how the Igbo is or the Yoruba.
I want to say that one more time.
So they're not connected like how the Igbos are connected. All Igbos are connected, or all Yoruba.
No. Like, so for instance, there's some Wolof that might have my haplogroup. I'm EM 132. Like I have a different E haplogroup than a lot of people in West Africa. Like the Fulani have it, the Dogon have it, the Wolof have it, some of the Mandinka have it, but not very many people else. You know what I'm saying?
But you see, we have to be. You see, I don't think there's a problem with anybody claiming Israel, but I don't think they are officially ancient Israelites. And the reason why I say that is because the Majorcan, I call it Majorcan, of course.
No worries.
Majorcan.
No worries.
I say that when you look at the maps and look at everywhere where people were and the trade routes, this is why Deuteronomy 28 and the Trans-Saharan trade route is important. Because then I get the opportunity to let people see that there's opportunities for people to move around, especially Jews who classify themselves and tell us who they are. This is why the Orthodox Jews, who are the Ashkenazi and the Sephardics, laugh, because they're like, oh, so you're saying that you came over as a Jew, as a slave, when some of them participated in the slave trade. So it makes us look our argument look crazy. These people are not purposely trying to say, hey, I'm a they are connected. Some of them are connected to the slave trade as far as trading, and some of them are just connected with running from Spain and Israel, Spain and Portugal, and some of them are just connected from being traders, Radhanite Jews, Ibadi Jews, all type of different people. So those are some of the things that we have to look at. We got to look at that, bro. We have to. We have to look at that. So when we make a claim that the Wolof say it, I'm saying everybody in Africa has a right to claim something, because almost all the main trading areas, they were Jews. And they are always in control of the trades. So you're gonna find that in the converts, you see, there's a book that I have called Jews Under Islam, man. It had a source in it and I can't find it. It talks about the black Jews who converted in Africa, reaching out to Babylon and saying, hey, how much money should we give for donation and all that stuff? And I'm saying to myself, obviously they were black Jews. And if they're black Jews, why are all of them connecting to Babylon? All of them connect to Babylon. So if they're connecting to Babylon, that's telling me that they're following rabbinical Judaism. So are you saying, Orthodox Moor, that these Jews, Bene Israel or whoever, Timbuktu Jews, Bambara, whoever, were all connected to? So are we saying
you're talking about rabbinical Judaism? Connected to Babylon or rabbinical Judaism?
Yeah, it's connected to Babylon.
Hold on, those are two separate things. Connected to Babylon or connected to rabbinical Judaism?
Babylon is the home of rabbinical Judaism. It is.
So no, hold on. So real quick, like, so you have people like the Limba, right, who say that their story is that they come from the expulsion, right, the expulsion from the Babylonian captivity, right? So we're like Ezra that kicked out the people who were whose mothers were not supposedly Israelites and their children, etc. Right? So their connection, like, so they don't rock with the Talmud, right? The people in West Africa don't rock with the Talmud. A lot of people
in the West Africa today are basically, they don't follow New Testament and they try to follow Torah, but they're actually being taught rabbinical Judaism.
I don't disagree with that. Okay. Yes, they are being taught. They're being taught rabbinical Judaism. That would imply that they were not doing it before, correct?
That they're being taught. They weren't being taught. They weren't. You see, remember, some of these Jews in Africa before 1980, they weren't claiming that. Remember that. This is new. I don't
disagree.
This is new. So when they say they claim this and that, this is why I'm saying there's supposed to be stories. If you don't have a story that people say, I got a Jewish background, they're lying.
So,
I believe all the stories, bro. This is how you break it down. I believe all the traditions, because they were Jews that were trading. They were Luso Africans. They were people who were trading from Morocco and Fez and Sijamasa to Taoud. People from Taoud went to Morocco. To Timbuktu, and people were trading. You had Luanga Jews in Congo. Yeah, all these Jews are practicing trade. So of course you're gonna find Jews. I don't think that's not a problem. I'm just saying it's not us. Those people who were practicing trade were not on the slave ship. That's just the bottom line. They weren't involved.
So if you're talking about the North African Jews and you're talking about like the Luso Africans, don't disagree, right? 100%, right? So let's say so for instance, I'm talking about those Wolof, talking about the B'nai Israel, right? Like, so again, I have DNA that connects to the Wolof, right? That same DNA I can find in East Africa amongst the Fulani, and in Sudan amongst the Fulani and amongst the Hausa, right? For EM132, right? So my DNA in and of itself shows an east-west migration from Sudan to West Africa, right? So why is that invalid in the sense of a concept of no, there could be people from West Africa who were Wolof, Fulani, Mandinka, etc. You know what I'm saying? That obviously could be on slave ships because they definitely were on slave ships. Like, how did I get my DNA?
All right. So now, if you have, what is your primary Y DNA marker?
EM132.
All right. So now you have an E marker. That's weird. Living DNA does a good job of actually talking about different DNA markers and all that stuff, right?
It's heaviest in Mali amongst the Dogon and amongst the Fulani.
Okay, all right. So now, why is it you wouldn't try to make a connection to the Dogon instead of Jews?
I do make connections. I don't disconnect myself. I connect to everybody that my DNA goes to.
Okay, all right. So you're saying you're a Dogon Jew?
I'm saying I'm genetically related to Dogons, 100%.
Okay. All right, but I'm just saying. So you're a Dogon, but you're also a Jew and an Arab and a Muslim at the same time.
So I'm a Quranist and a Karaite in my tradition, right? The vast majority of my people came from a Hebrew background, right? So my culture is Hebrew, right? So I'm of African descent. I also have Hebrew culture. That's not antithetical to being African.
Hold on there. Gotta have this thing on right here. Yeah, I think our connections, and when we're looking at it, if we look at the story, like the Wolof story, let's look at the Wolof story for a second. When was the Wolof story started?
When was the Wolof story started?
Yeah,
That's the oral tradition.
People are saying that they Hebrew. When was it started?
That's the oral tradition.
All right, but when did we
They're
start?
they're saying it goes back 1,000 years.
Of course, people gonna say go back 1,000 years. That's like the people that saying that they're tribe of Dan right now. The tribe of Dan story started from when Europeans first started documenting in the 1700s. By the time it reached the 1900s, it changed again. By the time it reached 2000, oh, we from the tribe of Dan. It changed so many times. All I'm saying is the Wolof. When did they start documenting the Wolof oral tradition?
When did who start documenting? When you say that,
Anybody?
because you're either talking about Muslims or you're talking about Europeans.
Yeah, when did the Muslims document the Wolof saying that they come from Israel?
I have no idea. I got to look into that one because the article I read was in English, not Arabic.
Yeah, but I mean, you're gonna find all these anthropologists who go there and then document X, Y, and Z. What I'm saying is that how can we trace this oral tradition when anthropologists are going there from years? And I'm sure I've never really studied the Wolof, but I've heard the story, but I'm trying to figure out when do we take these stories literal to the point where we're gonna say, hey, this is true, man. This is true. The people are saying that, and then you can't argue with people because they say, oh, well, the Wolof said this, man, so it must be true. And you're not from the Wolof area. So how you contesting what the African people are saying from the land? I'm saying that the Wolof people have many traditions. I'm sure they do. I'm sure they do. Why do
as what you would expect from a people who have mixed genetics, right? Just there's very few homogenous populations in West Africa that we come from.
Okay. No, I'm not disagreeing. Not disagreeing at
all. So I would expect to have a mix. So for instance, like when there's a mix of people, like the Lemba have 13 different haplogroups right out the men, right? Like the Fulani have like at least 7, right? You know what I'm saying? The Hausa have like 5 or 6. You know what I'm saying? Like there's a multitude, and there's going to be a multitude of stories that come along with it. I don't expect to have a homogenous story from any group of people in West Africa at this juncture, right?
Right. I think it shows that the Wolof were controlled by who mostly? Were they ever controlled by the Arabs? By Muslims?
By Muslims, yeah, 100%.
All right. From what time period?
Oh, I couldn't call that one.
Right.
I got it, because you know, like the Fulani were warring with the Hausa, warring with the Mandinka, warring with the Wolof, warring with the Bambara. You know what I'm saying? Like, bro, like you're asking me.
Everybody was warring with somebody.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, so, like, it's safe to say at one point all them tribes I mentioned were were underneath another tribe at one point. You know what I'm saying?
Okay. I'm reading something about it right now.
No, I'll send you an article about it. You want in the back chat?
So specialized in archaeology have been discovered in Senegal and the Gambia, such as prehistoric pottery, the 8th century stones, and the 14th century burial. But states gamble these provide no evidence that links them directly to the Wolof ethnic group. Their name as the Wolof first appears on the records of 15th century Portuguese travelers. With the Arab conquest of West Africa in late centuries of the first millennium, one theory says that Wolof people were forced to move into North and East Senegal, where over time villages developed in autonomous states such as Baal, Keor, together volunteered to form the Jollof Empire. According to Gamble, the migration likely occurred at the end of the 11th century when the Ghana Empire fell to the Muslim armies from Sudan. Another oral tradition tells of a legend in Wallo which starts with 2 villages near a lake. In a dispute, a mysterious person arose from the lake to settle the dispute. The villagers detained. He was called Ndaya Danin Ndaya, and his descendants were called that. These led to ruling families of Wolof, Mali, and Morocco, according to this mythical legend. The documented history from the 15th century onwards is a complex story of the rivalry between powerful families, war, coups, and conquest in Wolof society. This is what I really I want to actually, you see, I like to trace stories and oral traditions from when people document them. And it's sad, but most of the oral traditions that we have come from Portuguese or anyone who have had contact with them. So that's why I asked a story of the Muslims, because the oral traditions, you get an idea. Whenever Islam is evolved, there's always going to be some sort of Middle Eastern connection, and that's what we find when you look at David Goldenberg's work. They don't. Nobody really takes these oral traditions as seriously as how some people do. What they do know is that Islam played a major role because people want to attach themselves to greatness. So I don't want to fall into that trap of saying, "Oh, these people claim this." I want to know, when did we start hearing that? Oh, we are connected to.
So I'm here. I agree with all that.
There's only one.
Hold on, real quick. Real quick, if I could just take off on that right quick. So I agree with everything you're talking about in terms of having to mince through and sort through the Islamic narratives or whatnot, right? The one thing I'm trying to understand is like, so what would benefit
I like the way this feel. Yeah. Let my soul cry. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Minister. We gonna speak from the heart on this one. I'm performing lyrical funerals, no obituary. I killed your boy and brought him back to life. Pet cemetery. My anointing not based on attendance at a seminary. Scarlet witches, they attracted to the visionary. Everywhere I go, I bring the word with me, missionary. Soldier drafted in the war machine, military. Pay attention, what I'm saying to you, legendary. You got the demeanor of a front desk secretary. That mean you take the calls, but you don't make the calls. That's why you hate, cause ain't nothing fake about me at all. Now I dare you try to say that with a straight face. My delivery in tip-top great shape. I'm too advanced for you, light years, space age. No evolution for you cavemen, stone age. I'm a thoroughbred, rock solid. I came from the bottom to the top, rock climbing. I grew up in the hood, pros and cons. That's that full court pressure when the ambulance roll out the stretcher. Why can't you see it's not logical? And you live diabolical. Boy, your point of view smaller than the hair follicle molecule. This for all of them that follow you, smoking all of them barbecue. When I pull up, your voice don't correct itself with no auto-tune. I got a whole nother level that I can enter whenever I gotta deal with the devil. I pick a whole nother method. I hear a whole lot of yapping. They wanna see my reaction. Really out here in the community making it happen. I don't really think they understand the dilemma. They ain't looking at the man in the mirror. Can't say it any clearer. The plan is very simple. It's time to start playing in the temple. Before somebody come and put the can on your temple. Reaching like a baby with his hand for the nipple. The Grand Reaper coming with his hand on the sickle. In the van coming with a ram with it. With the van coming get him. I am so glad that I changed up. Made it out of where I came from. Watch for the slide in the hook of the slow ball, fastball, and that change up. That ghetto lifestyle, it changed us. Go back to visit, it ain't changed much. Only difference is now the way that my brain process information. And Satan, been after my license day one. Let me say something. Only reason that I'm still alive today because God's grace is amazing. Just another raisin in the sun. Dream deferred when things occur. Now you getting served right on the curb like a lemonade stand. I just gave you the benediction, let the whole church say amen.